Is that all you prepared? Just dried fish and rice? My God, this is so embarrassing for your son, sneered one of the guests as she mocked the simple table that Diane had set for Jilo's birthday. Meanwhile, across town in an upscale gated community, a grand celebration was underway. There was a mascot, a roast pig, fireworks, and even a celebrity host, all for Katrina's son. But amidst the noise of the extravagant party, Enzo, the CEO of a massive corporation, sat still as he watched a viral video on his phone. It was his son, Jilo, smiling, blowing a single candle perched on top of a mound of white rice. There was no background music, no glitter, no guests, just a boy, happy to be remembered. Enzo began to cry. The sun beat down harshly on the day of Alec Ramirez's 7th birthday, the child of Enzo and Katrina. At the massive garden of the Ramirez estate, catering trucks rolled in, decorators bustled around, and a stage was being set up. There were fireworks, mascots, an ice sculpture, and buffet tables overflowing with gourmet food. Make sure the lighting is perfect. I don't want any of the pictures to look cheap, Katrina ordered the event coordinator as she swirled her wine glass, dressed in a designer gown flown in from Paris, her hair styled by a celebrity hairstylist. Enzo, CEO of the Ramirez Group of companies, silently observed the scene in a sleek branded coat. He held his phone in one hand but didn't use it. Something felt off. Something was missing. But there was no time to dwell on it. He was expected to take the stage later to give a speech for Alec. Across the city, in a cramped alley, Diane fanned the smoke away with a plastic fan while she fried dried fish over a tiny gas stove. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. This is all I could manage for now," she whispered as she fixed the modest table outside their small house. There were no balloons, no cake, just a glass of juice, 2 pieces of dried fish, and some white rice. Jalo, 7 years old, sat in a worn plastic chair. He held a handmade birthday card cut from scrap paper. On it was written in crayon, "Happy birthday, Jello, love, Mom." "This is really good, Mama. Thank you." The boy beamed as he looked at the food. Diane stared at her son, swallowed hard, and forced a smile. "You look more handsome today, baby, just like your dad when he was young." Jilo was quiet. His eyes kept glancing toward the door, waiting, expecting. "Honey," Diane asked gently. "Mama, will Daddy come today?" Diane bit her lip. A pang gripped her stomach. "Maybe he's busy right now, sweetheart. He is a CEO, after all. But maybe next year you'll get to spend time with him again." Jilo only nodded, smiling faintly, though the sadness in his eyes was evident. A few moments later, 2 of Diane's friends from the neighborhood arrived carrying a small takeout box of noodles and some bread. "Happy birthday, Jilo," they greeted cheerfully. "Thank you," Jalo responded with joy, but not all guests had kind hearts. "Is this really what you're serving? Dried fish and rice?" one whispered, loud enough to be heard. "My God, not even a cake. Poor kid." "Let it go," the other friend said quietly. "What matters is there's something on the table." Diane caught their reaction. She swallowed her pride and gently patted Jilo on the back. "Look, sweetheart, you have visitors. So many fans today." Jilo looked at his mum and hugged her tightly. "I'm happy, Mama, because I get to spend today with you." Meanwhile, the birthday bash for Alec was exploding with energy. Live band, celebrity host, and a magician paid millions for a 30-minute show. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the future boss, baby Alec Ramirez," the host shouted. Alec came out in a tiny tuxedo. Photographers snapped shots as the crowd clapped wildly. Business partners congratulated Enzo. "You're lucky, Enzo. What a cute kid," said one elderly businessman. Enzo forced a smile, but something was gnawing inside him. He glanced at his watch, then stared at the stage. There was a pang in his chest that he couldn't explain. He dismissed it. Perhaps he was just tired. Or maybe it was just the noise. That night, while Galo slept, Diane quietly cleaned up their humble celebration. She took down the hand-cut paper banners taped to the ceiling, made from old newspapers. She opened her phone. No text, no missed calls from Enzo. She sighed. "It's okay, sweetheart. You know me better than he ever did." She leaned over and kissed her son's forehead. "Happy birthday, my baby." That morning, as J-Lo's birthday continued, there was a weight in the air inside their small home. Diane quietly placed a hard-boiled egg beside the dried fish and rice on the table. Despite having little, she wanted to make the day special for her son. "Mom," J-Lo called as he held up the same handmade paper banner from the old newspaper. "I want to hang this on the door, so it'll feel more like a party." "You're amazing, kiddo," Diane replied, forcing a smile as she looked at his joyful little face. "Go ahead and hang it. Afterward, we'll eat together." When they finished, J-Lo quietly sat beside his mom. Diane was combing her hair when he asked out of nowhere, "Mom, do you think Dad will come today?" It felt like a bullet had hit Diane in the chest, but she quickly smiled. "Maybe he's just busy, sweetheart. You know your dad has so much going on at the office, but maybe when he has free time he'll come visit." J-Lo nodded, trying to hide the sadness in his eyes. "That's okay. You're here with me, and that makes me happy." Diane hugged him tightly. Behind that embrace, she tried to keep herself from crying. Nothing weighed heavier on a mother's heart than the hope in her child's eyes, that maybe his dad would show up. Meanwhile, in a lavish 5-star hotel ballroom across the city, the birthday party for Alec Ramirez overflowed with luxury and spectacle. A live host from a daytime TV show entertained the crowd. The buffet featured a sushi bar, steak carving station, and a chocolate fountain. Security was stationed at the entrance due to the volume of VIP guests. "Enzo, let's grab a picture over here," called one of the investors. "We'll post it. Should trend in no time." Enzo smiled politely, holding a wine glass, posing in front of an enormous 6-layer cake. Katrina, in a backless emerald gown, was frantically entertaining guests. "Champagne for the VIP table," she barked at a waiter. Amid the flashing cameras and children's laughter, Enzo's assistant, Philip, approached quietly. He held out a phone and leaned toward his boss. "Sir, there's something I'd like to show you." "What is it?" "Not now. I've got to give a speech." "Sir, it's gone viral, and it's your son." Enzo's brow furrowed. "My son?" Philip showed him the video. It had been posted by a neighbor of Diane's on social media. The caption read, "I cried watching this. So simple, yet the kid's smile was everything." J-Lo turns 7. In the video, J-Lo sat at a small table. A single candle stood in the middle of a bowl of rice. A piece of dried fish and a hard-boiled egg sat beside it. He held his own handmade birthday card and blew out the candle as someone off-screen sang, "Happy Birthday." The noise of the party around Enzo suddenly muted. The laughter, the music, the shouting, it all faded. The world blurred. There on the screen, his son Galo was smiling, genuinely happy with a humble meal. No extravagance, no crowd, just love. The video continued. Diane leaned in and kissed her son. "Are you happy, sweetheart?" "Yes, Mama, because I'm with you." The next clip was of a guest taking a picture of the table, and in the background, voices could be heard. "Seriously? Just dried fish? Looks like breakfast. That's embarrassing." "Post it on TikTok. It might go viral." Philip's voice came softly beside Enzo. "Sir, looks like J-Lo still hasn't forgotten you." Enzo touched his temple. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. At this grand party for his legal son, Alec, there on the screen was his firstborn. No cake, no guests, no gifts, and yet smiling. "What's the caption?" he asked quietly. The happiest kid whose birthday dinner was dried fish and rice. The video had already reached over 500,000 views. It was trending on Facebook and TikTok. Enzo walked away from the crowd. He found himself alone in a hallway, quiet. Each step felt heavier than the last. Behind him, the party continued. Alec was dancing on stage with a mascot. Guests were laughing. None of them knew what was happening inside him. On his phone screen, Enzo saw J-Lo again, staring directly at the camera. A caption rolled across the screen. "I wish Dad could be with me, even just once." Enzo closed his eyes. A tear fell. His hand shook as he pressed play again. He sat alone in a corner of the ballroom, far from the glitter and laughter. The party behind him went on. Clowns, confetti, karaoke, parents chatting. But Enzo couldn't smile. He couldn't bring himself to return to the stage. On the screen, J-Lo's small, thin face lit up as he blew out the candle on the rice. In the background, Diane wiped her tears as she smiled for her son. "Happy birthday to me," J-Lo sang softly, but with all the joy in the world. Enzo clutched his chest. It tightened, like something inside him tore open. How many years had it been since he last visited the boy? How long had it been since he last held his hand? "Sir," Philip whispered beside him. Enzo didn't answer. He restarted the video from the beginning. Seconds passed, and again they heard J-Lo's innocent wish. "I wish Dad could be with me, even just once." Enzo broke. A tear slid down his cheek. He didn't wipe it away. He didn't try to hide it. "Sir," Philip repeated softly. "Looks like J-Lo really hasn't forgotten you." Enzo said nothing. He let out a deep breath and sat down on a bench in the hallway. He placed his phone in his palm and covered his eyes with his hand. There was no sound around him now, just the deafening beat of his heart pounding with regret. He remembered the last time he saw J-Lo, a little boy asking to play trains while he was on the phone with investors, arguing about quarterly reports. "Later, son," he had said. "Daddy's busy." He couldn't even remember if they ever played that game. But now everything was clear. While he chased wealth and prestige, he vanished from his child's world. His phone buzzed. It was a call from Katrina. Incoming call. Katrina. 17 missed calls. He didn't answer. He couldn't face a wife whose priority was press releases and photo ops. A new notification popped up. J-Lo and the Rice Candle Party. The viral birthday that broke the nation's heart. It had been posted by a popular vlogger. Over 1.2 million views already. He opened the article. The thumbnail showed J-Lo holding his handwritten birthday card. No fancy balloons, no cake, just dried fish, but his eyes sparkled like diamonds. This is love. Enzo closed his eyes. His pride shattered. He was a CEO owner of a corporate empire. His company had a multi-million-dollar marketing budget, but he had no picture to proudly show of his own son on his special day. "Sir," Philip spoke again, "do you want me to call Miss Diane?" Enzo didn't answer right away. He stood up, walked toward a hallway mirror, and stared at himself. He looked perfect. An expensive suit, a luxury watch, impeccable posture. But in that moment, his eyes were swollen. He wasn't a CEO, he was just a man defeated not by business, but by fatherhood. "She doesn't need me anymore," he whispered, "but I need to see them." "Would you like me to arrange a visit?" Philip asked. "Number surder, I don't want it to feel like a business meeting. I just need to say I'm sorry." Inside the party, the host took the mic again. "Ladies and gentlemen, the proud father of Alec, Mr. Enzo Ramirez." Applause thundered across the hall. but he wasn't at the VIP table. "Enzo," Katrina said sharply, "where the hell is he?" Outside the hotel, Enzo was already in his car. In his chest, he held the phone, still showing the video of his son, and finally he whispered, "I'm sorry, son." As the car drove through the road home, Enzo sat in silence, unable to look out the window. The video of Galo played again and again in his mind. That smile, one he never saw in person on the boy's birthday, cut deep. Then he was pulled into a memory. 7 years ago, everything had been different. Life was simpler. They lived in a modest but peaceful apartment. Diane was in the kitchen cooking, while Enzo sat on the couch. He hugged her from behind, playfully. "When you make adobo like that, I forget every problem I have at the office," he had said, kissing her cheek. "Don't let your tongue get too used to my cooking. You might miss it when I'm gone," she teased. "You're not going anywhere," Enzo had replied. "You're my home." They were happy, no luxury, but full of love. But things hadn't stayed easy. When Diane was nearly 2 months pregnant with their first child, she began bleeding. They rushed to the hospital. Enzo trembled as he waited outside the emergency room. The doctor emerged with a heavy expression. "I'm sorry, Mr. Ramirez. We couldn't save the baby." Diane's world shattered. She sobbed into Enzo's chest while he tried to stay strong. "Maybe it's not our time," he said. "Maybe this is just a test." From then on, something cracked between them. Diane became quieter. Enzo threw himself deeper into work. It was as if pain haunted their home, and they didn't know how to face it together. Months passed. One morning, while they were having breakfast, Diane placed a pregnancy test kit on the table. "It's positive again," she said softly. Enzo didn't react immediately. "Really? You're pregnant again?" Diane nodded, but unlike before, her eyes lacked sparkle. There was fear, unease. "This time, I want to focus on being a mum. I don't want to leave him. I want to care for him. I want to be hands-on for everything." Enzo was surprised. "So you don't want to work anymore?" "It's not because I'm lazy," she said gently. "It's because I want to build the family we lost." Enzo didn't answer right away. In his mind, he knew he needed to work twice as hard to ensure they never lost another child. Not to illness, but to poverty. So he buried himself in work. That was when he first met Katrina, the daughter of a powerful investor on the Ramirez Group board. She was beautiful, bold, seductive. Most of all, she was ambitious. At every company gala, Katrina was by his side. Diane stayed home, in an old house dress, holding a checklist of baby items, busy doing laundry. "Your wife is pretty," Katrina joked once, "but you don't match. You're sharp, powerful. She's ordinary." "You don't know her," Enzo had snapped back. But over time, those words began to linger. In every board meeting, every walk on the red carpet, Diane began to feel harder to keep up with. Then one day, it erupted into a fight. "You barely talk to me anymore. It's always work," Diane cried. "You just don't understand. I'm trying to secure our future. I can't do this on feelings alone." "Future?" Diane asked, her voice cracking. "What kind of future if you can't even see us now?" In that last fight, Diane was already 2 months pregnant with J-Lo. Enzo, instead of holding her and promising to understand, turned his back. A few weeks later, headlines broke. Enzo Ramirez spotted at exclusive yacht party with Catriona Mendoza. Back in their tiny living room, Diane sat in disbelief, clutching her growing belly. She watched the news, devastated. Back in the present, Enzo stared out the car window. He exhaled, heavy. "I chose ambition and turned my back on the reason I started all of it." "How old is Gilo again?" he asked Philip. "7, sir." Enzo nodded. 7 years. 7 years I've been a stranger in my own son's life. He fell silent. In his heart, the once unshakable CEO had become a man finally waking up to everything he had failed to be. The night was quiet inside Enzo's office. He sat alone, staring at an old photo frame, its picture almost faded. It was one of the few that Katrina had thrown into storage years ago, but that he had asked Philip to find just today. It was an old but precious photo. Diane, pregnant, with Enzo hugging her from behind. Enzo's eyes welled with memory. That was where it all began, with a decision he once believed was right, a decision that thought money could fix every absence, 7 years ago. This check, Enzo had said, placing an envelope on the small table. It should be enough each month for you and the baby. Ask Mom for help if you need a sitter. Diane sat on the worn couch, holding a small pharmacy bag from her prenatal checkup. She was silent. She looked at the envelope but didn't take it. "This isn't what we need," she said softly. "Diane," Enzo sighed, "I can't just throw away my career. I have responsibilities. Investors are watching." "Investors?" Diane repeated. "Are you saying even our child has become just another business transaction?" Enzo took a deep breath. "It's not like that. I just want to be sure you won't suffer." She stood, walked over to the envelope and pushed it back toward him. "I don't care about your money, Enzo," she said firmly. "What your child needs is you. Not a deposit, not a check, your presence." Enzo was stunned. Deep inside, he knew she was right. But outside, beyond the door, his car was waiting. The engine was already running. He had a meeting with investors, a gala with Katrina. And at that moment, he chose to walk away. "I'm sorry, Diane. This isn't easy for me either. But I can't give myself to two worlds. I can't go back while trying to move forward." Diane didn't answer. She sat back down and placed a hand over her belly. "If that's what you can offer," she whispered, "then I'll raise this child. Alone." The night Enzo left, it was as if the light went out in their home. The connection between them grew fainter with each passing day. Every envelope Enzo sent through his assistant came back, unopened. Diane even sent a handwritten message once. "What your child needs is a father, not an allowance." When Philip showed it to Enzo, he tore it up. "She's too idealistic," he muttered. "She doesn't know how heavy this kind of responsibility is." But inside, two voices began to battle, his career and his conscience. Back in the present, Enzo walked to a shelf in his office. He opened a drawer and pulled out a box he hadn't touched in years. Inside were old belongings he couldn't throw away. There was a baby onesie they once bought. It had the print, "Daddy's Little Boss." It had never been worn. The baby hadn't made it. He found things he'd never given, never used. At the bottom of the box was a drawing made by Gilo, something Diane had sent when Gilo was just 2 years old. It showed a stick-figure family, a mum, a child, and a man drawn far off to the side with a question mark above his head. On the back, Diane had written, "This is how he draws our family. He says the man is Dad. Busy, but he still wants you to see it." Enzo stared at it. He hadn't even read the note back then. He had laughed it off at the office, burying it under a pile of reports. Now it felt like a dagger to the heart. "Sir?" Philip asked from the door. "Are you okay?" Enzo didn't answer immediately. He slowly tapped the chair and sat down heavily. What if it's too late?" he asked quietly. "Sir, if you're trying to make it right, even after 7 years, maybe you still have the right to try." Philip said nothing more, but from the look in Enzo's eyes, he already knew the answer. Across the city, Diane wiped down the table in their home. She had just finished tutoring some neighborhood kids, a side job to help cover expenses. Gilo was busy working on his homework. She looked over at him, quiet, patient, and never demanding. In her heart, a silent prayer rose. I hope someday he sees the true worth of our son. Even if he never comes back to us, I just hope he sees him. The next day at the office, Enzo watched the viral video again. But this time, he didn't just feel guilt. For the first time, he felt a desire to come back, not as a CEO, but as a father. A few days had passed since he first saw the video of Galo's simple birthday. For him, the weight hadn't lifted. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the smile of a boy he hadn't held in 7 years. "Happy birthday to me." The innocent voice still echoed in his mind, full of joy, despite only having dried fish and rice. He sat inside his office, but the contracts, proposals, and even his always buzzing phone, they all fell silent to him. He felt no hunger, no interest in wealth, no desire to lead. His hand clutched his chest, not from any business pain, but from the suffocating grip of conscience. "Sir, you have a 3 p.m. meeting with the Korea group of investors," Philip reminded him. "Cancel it. Reschedule for next week," Enzo replied coldly. "Sir, they said it's urgent. They're already on their way." "Then entertain them. I have somewhere to be." Enzo didn't wait for a reply. He stood, grabbed his coat, and walked out of the office. Inside his car, he played an old voice message from Diane. The only time she had ever picked up his call, it had been over 7 years. "If you can't be a husband, I just hope you can manage to be a father." As the car drove through the narrow road toward Diane's old neighborhood, Enzo didn't know which feeling would overpower him: anxiety, guilt, or fear. After a few more turns, the car slowed. He had arrived at a cramped alley. The reality he had long turned away from was now right in front of his eyes, the humble world where his son grew up. He stepped out of the car and glanced around. Kids played tag in the street. An old man sold tofu from a cart. A woman washed laundry using a plastic tub on the sidewalk. Then he stopped in front of a small house with a broken gate and curtains made from the old bedsheets. This was it, Diane and Gilo's home. He stood at the doorstep. His hands trembled. No bodyguards, no driver, no Philip. Just Enzo, not as a CEO, but as a father. He stepped closer, raised his hand, and was about to knock when he heard a voice from inside. "Mum, we have Quiz B practice tomorrow. Can I still come even if I don't have new shoes?" "Of course, sweetheart," Diane replied. "No matter what you wear, you're still the smartest one in my eyes." Enzo smiled faintly, but the smile quickly gave way to a sting in his chest. That simple conversation between mother and son felt like blades through his heart. Moments he should have been part of. He walked toward the window and peeked inside. There was Diane, sitting by the table, sewing Gilo's old school bag. Next to her, Gilo sat quietly, writing in his notebook. Enzo couldn't take it. He stepped back. He quietly returned to his car, took off his coat, and placed it beside him. He wanted to strip away the weight of who he had become. "Coward," he whispered to himself. "You run a company, but you can't even face your own son." He pulled from his pocket the photograph he had found in the old box, the one of him and Diane when she was pregnant. He stared at it. He gently wiped the faded edge with his thumb, and didn't even notice the tear sliding down his cheek. The next day, Enzo returned to the office. He was quiet, deep in thought. On his desk, he laid down a photo he had printed from the viral video, a picture of Diane and Gilo. "Sir, are you okay?" Philip asked. "No." "Is there anything you want me to do?" Enzo looked up. "Find me a way to make things right, even if I haven't been forgiven yet." As Enzo looked out the window at the towering buildings of his corporation, a question echoed in his mind. When did it become easier for me to lead a company than to embrace my own son? That night, the lights were dim in Diane and Gilo's small home. Only a weak desk lamp lit the room. Gilo sat on the floor, studying spelling words in a worn-out notebook. Beside him, Diane did the laundry in a plastic tub, not for their own clothes, but for the house across the street that paid her a little for help. Gilo approached her, holding a piece of cut-out paper. "Mom, look, I got a perfect score today." Diane smiled. Her hands were dripping wet, but she didn't hesitate to hug him. "You're amazing, sweetheart," she whispered. "Even when I'm tired, that kind of news takes it all away." "Mom," Gilo said, looking toward the table, "even if it's just dried fish, it still tastes really good, because you made it." Diane looked at her son. She paused for a moment. It was as if his words had slapped her heart. No complaints, no resentment, only love. She caressed his cheek. "You know, sometimes I wonder, is this enough? The fish, the rice, your torn bag?" "It's enough, Mom, because I'm with you." Diane gripped his hand tightly. Behind her brave smile was a constant fear that one day Gilo would ask why their family wasn't like the others, why his father was never there for recognition, days, school projects, birthdays. But for now, the embrace of her son was enough. The next morning, Diane woke up early. She served hot porridge and egg for Gilo before he left for school. As she combed his hair, she went over her schedule. "After laundry this morning, I have tutoring at Mrs. Mendez's. Then at 6 p.m., I'll be cleaning at Dr. Santos' clinic. I might be home a little late, okay?" "That's fine, Mom. I'll do my assignments before you get back." Diane smiled. "Sweetheart, I'm sorry if I can't always come to your school activities." "It's okay, Mom, as long as you're safe." Diane bowed her head and hugged him tighter. Gilo was always like this. No bitterness, always understanding, always caring. That afternoon, Diane walked home, tired and carrying a plastic bag of laundry soap. A neighbor called out from the roadside. "Diane, I heard your son made it to the Quiz Bee again." "Yep," she said with a smile. "Smart kid. Didn't get that from our family, but I guess he still got it somehow." She tried to hide her exhaustion behind humor. "You're amazing. You're the mom and the dad. I salute you." "When you have a child," Diane replied, "you'll do anything. Even if you don't have money for new shoes, as long as there's milk or lunch, it's enough." That night when she got home, Gilo met her at the door. "Mom, I won the elimination round." She forgot her fatigue immediately. "Really? Wow, sweetheart. You're incredible. Want a reward?" Gilo nodded. Diane pulled out the last few coins from her pocket. They walked to the corner vendor and bought one fish ball each. As they walked home, they laughed together, like they had no problems at all. "Mom," Gilo suddenly asked, "when I grow up, can you stop working?" Diane froze. "Why do you ask that?" "Because I want you to stay home with me so you won't be tired anymore." Diane teared up. She turned away for a second so he wouldn't see. But in her heart she made a vow that no matter what happens, she would never abandon this child. He was her son. He was her life. Meanwhile, in a hotel room across the city, Enzo lay on the bed watching the replay of a vlogger's interview with J-Lo. The video had now reached 2.3 million views. "If someone gave you a gift, what would you want?" the vlogger asked. "A gift," J-Lo replied. I just wish I had someone to play with, even if I don't have toys." Enzo looked up at the ceiling. He slowly closed his eyes. With every answer, he felt how absent he had been from his son's life. That night, as Galo slept, Diane kissed him on the forehead and whispered, "Sweetheart, you have no idea how lucky I am to be your mom." Across town, Enzo sat in silence, staring at a photo of Galo. And for the first time, he asked himself, "Do I still have the right to return to their world?" Early the next morning, Enzo was already at the office. Outside, the sky was clear, sunlight reflecting off the windows. But inside his chest, the clouds of guilt and questions remained. He sat quietly at his desk, staring at his laptop screen. He had tried calling Diane several times, but she never answered. Maybe she already knew that no explanation would be enough. And if he were to try again, it couldn't be half-hearted. He tapped a key and made a call. "Philip, come up. I have something I need you to do." A few minutes later, his loyal assistant entered. "Sir, I want you to find out everything about Diane and Gilo. No one else should know. No media, no legal team, not even Katrina." Philip simply nodded, already used to Enzo's unexpected orders. But today the tone of his voice was different. This wasn't a CEO giving commands. It was a father. "I want to know how they live, what their situation is, what they need." "Understood, sir." "And Philip," Enzo added, "no one is to approach them. No one speaks to them. I don't want them to feel threatened. I just want to know." Philip nodded again. "I'll give you a full report by tomorrow." The next day, Philip returned to the office carrying a brown envelope. He handed it silently to Enzo in his private room. Enzo opened it and slowly took out the photos. Diane hanging laundry beside the street. Gilo carrying a worn-out backpack on his way into public school. Diane tutoring children outside her house at night. Gilo smiling while holding a medal. "Gilo is top of his class, sir," Philip explained. "He's been an honor student since first grade. He's also on his school's Quiz B team. Their public school is the only one in the district that made it to the finals." Enzo froze. "I had no idea," he whispered. "Ms. Diane works 3 jobs every day: laundry, tutoring, and part-time cleaning at a dental clinic. She doesn't accept government aid. She refuses help, even from neighbors who offer." "Why?" Enzo asked, though deep down he already knew. "She says she wants to raise Galo without relying on pity. She doesn't want him to feel like a burden to anyone, and she's proud of that." Enzo stared at one particular photo, Gilo smiling in an old PE uniform, holding a trophy. On the back was a note from a teacher. "Ms. Diane, we salute you for raising Gilo. He is an exemplary student." Enzo nearly dropped the photo frame from his hand. He tried to hide the tears welling in his eyes. "She's a better parent than I am," he muttered. That night, he couldn't sleep. While Katrina lay beside him, already asleep, Enzo's mind was wide awake. He stared at the ceiling, replaying every detail of the report. A clear decision began to form. He had to make it up to them, not for publicity, not for his image, but for the son who had suffered quietly in the shadow of his neglect. The next day, Enzo called Philip again. "Send anonymous funds to Galo's school," he said. "Say it's from someone who believes in him. I don't want my name on it. Just make sure their library is fixed. Get them new equipment." "Noted, sir." "Also, register Diane's house in her name. Buy the land from the owner, but don't evict them. Renovate the roof, the doors, the plumbing, everything." "Do you want them to know?" "Number say it's a sponsor from a barangay community upliftment program. No names, not even the media. No press release." Philip smiled faintly. He wasn't surprised. He knew his boss was a force in business, but today was the first time he saw the man's heart. "One more thing, sir," Philip added. "Galo has a competition next week. Finals." Enzo looked up. "Where?" "Central District School Auditorium. It's a public event." Enzo quietly smiled, scanning his schedule. "Philip," he said softly, "I want to see my son smile. Up close. For the first time." Since returning from the office that night, Katrina had already sensed the change. Enzo was no longer affectionate. He no longer participated in planning their upcoming summer trip to Japan with Alec. Even the steak made by their personal chef had gone untouched. "Enzo, is something wrong?" Katrina asked as she applied serum in front of her vanity mirror. "Number just tired from work," he replied shortly while opening his laptop. "You didn't even show up at the board meeting yesterday. Who've you been seeing?" Enzo looked at her through the mirror. He said nothing, but instead of staying quiet, Katrina walked over and opened Enzo's laptop. There she saw the saved image of J-Lo from the viral video. She gasped, "The son of your ex? Why are you looking at this?" Enzo still didn't speak. He gently closed the laptop, deliberately but firmly. "Enzo," Katrina snapped, "don't tell me you're planning to go back to them. Don't turn J-Lo into a rival. He's my son." "Exactly," she said, now half laughing in disbelief and rage. "A child from your ex. A woman who brought nothing to your life but shame." Enzo's eyes narrowed. "You don't know what Diane went through." "I know the present, Enzo," Katrina answered, voice rising. "Right now we are your family. Alec and I. Everything you've worked for, you're throwing away because of some weakness from the past." Enzo couldn't meet her gaze, not out of guilt, but because he couldn't understand when it became wrong to care about your own child. Katrina hurled the framed photo of her and Alec onto the table. "I didn't marry a man who was weak about his past." "I'm not weak, Katrina," Enzo replied coldly. "I've just now realized some things are more important than reputation." "Reputation? Your family is your reputation, Enzo. I'm your legal wife. Alec is your legal son." "Legal? Sure. But that doesn't mean he's the only one who deserves to be called my child." Katrina's eyes blazed. "Let me remind you, if you ruin this family's image, my family's support, and every investor connected to us, they'll all walk away." Enzo didn't respond. He stood, grabbed his coat and wallet, and walked out of the room. "Enzo, where are you going? I'm not obligated to report every step I take to you." Outside the mansion, he got into his car and told the driver, "Don't follow me." "I'm walking alone." He ended up at a convenience store, bought a bottled water, sat outside, near a group of teens doing homework, among simple lives in a world that felt more real. As he sat there, he asked himself, how did things end up like this between me and Katrina? When he first met her, Katrina was poised, business-savvy, and seemed emotionally stable. But as the relationship deepened, it was replaced with control, image management, and pretense. I didn't marry a man weak about his past. But why is that very weakness giving me the courage now to finally face it? The next day, while Katrina was arranging a meeting with a lifestyle magazine for their family feature, she received a call from the PR team. "Ma'am, someone from Mr. Enzo's office requested to put all media appearances as the Ramirez family on hold." "What?" she cursed. "Who gave that order?" "Personal instruction from Mr. Ramirez. Confidential reason." She dropped her iPad in shock. For the first time, she didn't understand how she was losing control. She was used to being the boss, the star, the center of the spotlight. But now, back on the stage was the woman she had long avoided speaking about, Diane, and the boy J-Lo, who, though absent from media, was clearly taking root in Enzo's heart. Inside his office, as Enzo looked at J-Lo's photo, he quietly murmured, "If the world runs on image, then fatherhood runs on heart." And for the first time, he was willing to lose his image in exchange for a chance to be with his son. Early in the morning, Enzo wore a hoodie, simple jeans, and sneakers, clothes he rarely used. Inside his car, he gazed at the facade of the Central District School Auditorium, the venue for J-Lo's inter-school Quiz Bee. "Sir, do you want me to wait for you in the parking lot?" the driver asked. "Number I'll walk out alone later." Enzo took a deep breath and stepped out of the car. No bodyguards, No PR team, not even Philip. This time, he wasn't a CEO. He was just a man hoping to see his son, even if from afar. Inside the auditorium, the place was already full. Students, teachers, and parents crowded the seats. Colorful tarpaulins hung across the stage. District Quiz B Finals, celebrating young minds. One by one, the host called out the participants from different schools. From Central Elementary School, Angelo Ramirez. Applause. From the side of the stage, Galo emerged, wearing his old school uniform, carrying a pencil and clipboard. He was clean and presentable, though his shoes were visibly worn. At the back of the crowd, Enzo stood silently, hands in his pockets, watching the boy he never really got to know. That was the first time he saw Galo with such confidence, giving high fives to teammates, smiling at his teacher, eyes sparkling. When the contest began, Enzo remained still. Even the loud cheers around him seemed to disappear. He was focused solely on Galo's every answer. Category: Science. Question number 5. What is the chemical symbol for gold? Ow, Galo answered quickly. Correct. Mathematics. What is 144 divided by 12? 12. Correct again. With each correct answer, Enzo's heart lit up, as if the universe was saying, "This is your son. Look at him." After an hour, the competition ended. The host took the mic again. And this year's champion, Central Elementary School. Cheering, applause. J-Lo's teacher clapped proudly as she led him up to the stage. A small trophy and medal were handed to him. Galo held the microphone. "I want to dedicate this win to my mom," he said, "because even when she's tired, she still helps me review every night. Thank you, Mom. You're my real champion." From the audience, Diane stood and clapped, her eyes filled with tears. Enzo could no longer hold back his own. He turned away and walked to the side of the auditorium, needing air. "Sir?" a woman's voice called behind him. He turned. A female teacher stood there, holding the attendance sheet. "Excuse me, but are you Enzo Ramirez?" Enzo hesitated. "I'm Galo's teacher. I'm sorry for asking, but you really look alike." He didn't respond right away, just gave a small nod. "I don't know what happened between you and Galo's mom," she said gently. "But sir, your son is a good boy, very kind, very smart." She paused. "He never complains. He's not talkative. But when it comes to his mom, he lights up with stories." Enzo couldn't speak. His tongue felt frozen. "I know it's hard to make up for 7 years," the teacher said, "but it's not too late." Enzo nodded. "Thank you, Mom." He didn't wait for the recognition ceremony to finish. He stepped out of the auditorium quickly. But before getting into his car, he paused outside, looked up at the sky, and closed his eyes. In his mind, Galo's voice echoed again. "Thank you, Mom. You're my real champion." But the most painful part was that not once was he mentioned in the speech, and he couldn't blame the boy. When Enzo arrived home, he saw Alec and Katrina just leaving the gate, headed to tennis training. "You're late again," Katrina complained, adjusting her sunglasses. Enzo didn't answer. He walked straight inside, entered the study room, and picked up Alec's baby photo album. He flipped through it. Dozens of photos, elaborate parties, balloons, imported toys. Then he took Galo's photo, the single one from the viral video, a simple birthday, dried fish, rice, a candle, but the smile, so real. Enzo placed the two photos side by side. Alec, wealthy, full of images but lacking memories. Galo, one photo, but overflowing with meaning. He whispered to himself, "I won't let you stay just a photo, son." Holding a simple eco bag filled with fruit and vitamins, Enzo stood in front of Diane's house. He had lost count how many times he'd planned to do this. 5, 10, but today he finally had the courage. No luxury coat, just a plain polo shirt and jeans. He looked like any regular dad visiting his child, but each step felt heavier than the last. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath. This is it. Knock, knock. No answer. Knock, knock. A few moments later, the door opened. Diane stood there, her eyes wide, clearly not expecting the man she had long pushed out of her heart and mind. Enzo. Silence filled the air between them. Can I come in? He asked softly. She didn't move right away. She wasn't angry. She wasn't happy. Her face was unreadable, firm, holding the weight of the past. Eventually, she nodded. He's here. Galo's inside. As Enzo stepped into the house, he sat at the edge of the same table he used to visit years ago. Back when it was filled with laughter, Diane's adobo, and dreams of the future. Now it bore the marks of exhaustion, but still clean and cared for. Gilo came out of the room holding his notebook. When he saw Enzo, he froze. Galo, Enzo said softly, forcing a smile. How are you? Gilo didn't answer. He looked at Diane, as if waiting for permission. Sweetheart, that's your dad, Diane said gently. Gilo slowly walked closer, eyes locked on Enzo from head to toe, as if unsure if this was real or a dream. Why now? He asked. It wasn't an angry question, nor was it accusing. It was innocent but piercing, from a heart that had waited too long. Enzo swallowed hard, his voice caught in his throat. Son, I don't even know where to begin. J-Lo nodded. That's okay. I don't really know what I'm supposed to feel either. That was when Enzo broke. He looked away as tears fell from his eyes. I'm sorry, son. I'm so sorry. Diane said nothing. She didn't sit. She stood behind Gilo, holding her son's shoulders. She didn't stop Enzo's tears, but she didn't cry either. She had already dried up inside. She was used to standing alone. Gilo, Enzo whispered, I know I can't take back the time I missed. But if you'll let me, I want to get to know you. I want to try. I don't know my answer yet, J-Lo replied, but can I still ask you sometimes what it feels like to have a dad? Enzo smiled through the tears. Any time, any question, any day. Diane finally spoke. I didn't agree for you to see him so you could be forgiven right away, she said. You're here now, fine, but that doesn't mean you can run from the past. Enzo nodded. I didn't come to erase your anger. I came to ask that even if I have no right, I hope you'll let me be a father. Diane looked away. The pain was still there, but deep down she knew it was no longer about her. It was about J-Lo. I won't deny him that right, she said, but I won't give you trust you haven't earned either. That's fair, Enzo replied. Just one step, a beginning. A few minutes later, they sat down to eat together. It was quiet, awkward. There was distance between every spoonful of rice. But for Galo, this was his first dinner with his father. And for Enzo, it was his first bite seasoned with regret and hope. Before leaving, Enzo handed J-Lo a small box. This isn't an expensive gift, son. It's old, something I've always meant to give you. When Galo opened it, inside was a toy train, the one they were supposed to play with when he was younger. Galo smiled. I remember this. Enzo nodded. I may have left the years behind, but I never forgot your first toy. 2 days after their quiet reunion, Enzo returned to Diane and J-Lo's home. This time, he brought things he believed might help him make amends. A new backpack, a fresh school uniform, shoes, some educational toys, and an envelope containing a check. In the car parked outside, a real estate broker waited for confirmation on the property Enzo had purchased in a safe and better neighborhood. When Diane opened the door, her eyes immediately went to the bags in his hands. What is this? She asked coldly. I just brought a few things. I know I can't bring back the past, but I thought maybe I could give something helpful for today. Diane said nothing. She looked at the grocery bags and the envelope, but didn't reach for any of them. I picked a house, Enzo added. It's quiet, near a good school. You can move any time. Why are you doing this? Diane asked, still not touching anything. Because I want to make things right, because I can't look at Gilo and forget how much I let him down. Oh, so you think money can fix this? She said. Do you think that check can make up for the nights I stayed up while he had a fever? For the first time he fell down and you weren't there? Do you think it's enough for all the years you were just a shadow? Enzo swallowed hard. He didn't answer right away. Despite the millions in his name, he couldn't shake the feeling of defeat. This isn't a bribe, he said. It's just a gift. The thing my son wants, Diane said sharply, can't be bought with your money. He needs your hug at night, your cheer when he wins, not new shoes, not a check. Even the birds outside seemed to go silent. Enzo slowly knelt in front of her, not to beg, but to meet the weight of those words. I'm sorry. Diane looked down at him. She wasn't angry, just tired. As a mother, I want to tell you that it's okay, she said. But as a woman, I can't say I've forgiven you yet. Enzo nodded. I understand. I'm not asking anything from you, Enzo, she continued. But if you're serious, then remember, trust can't be bought with money. And most of all, the love of your son is something you can never pay for. You have to earn it. Back at home, Enzo could only exhale. He opened the envelope and tore the check. For the first time in years, he wasn't a CEO. He was just a man who had been rejected, not because he lacked wealth, but because he had lacked heart. Later, he entered Alec's room. Alec was playing on his iPad. Son, Enzo called softly. How was school? Fine. Do you have a quiz bee? Do you have class this Saturday? I don't know. Enzo looked at Alec. Despite all the gifts he'd given him, the parties, toys, gadgets, there seemed to be no real connection. Meanwhile, in Diane's home, Gilo held the old train toy Enzo had given him during the last visit. Mom, he asked, do you think Dad will come back again, even if we didn't accept any of his gifts? Diane looked at her son. I don't know, sweetheart, but I hope he comes back, not to give something but to listen. Gilo smiled. I just want to play with him sometimes, even if he doesn't bring anything. Diane gently stroked her son's hair. Like I told you before, not every dad is perfect, but sometimes, even if it's late, they still try to make things right. That night, Enzo called his assistant. Cancel all my weekend meetings. Sir, Gilo has practice for the next quiz bee. I want to be there. It was a rainy afternoon when Enzo drove past the narrow alley of Central District. He didn't get out of the car. From inside, he simply watched. Workers from the Barangay Housing Rehabilitation Program, funded by Enzo himself, were repairing the roof of Diane's home. Make sure the plumbing, electrical, and roofing are all fixed, he instructed Philip. Yes, sir. Everything is being done quietly, as you requested. No one's mentioning your name, not even the barangay captain. Enzo nodded. He had no intention of boasting. He didn't want to say, I helped. He just wanted Diane and Gilo to feel relief, even without knowing the face behind it. In the weeks that followed, Diane and Gilo began to notice the changes. Gilo's school got a new blackboard, stronger electric fans, the library was renovated, new books arrived, donated by a community sponsor, the teachers said. What a generous sponsor, one teacher commented. It's like Gilo has a guardian angel. Diane said nothing. She didn't ask questions, she didn't try to find out, but something in her heart already knew. At the hospital where Diane's mother was confined due to high blood pressure and a mild stroke, she was shocked to hear the nurse say, Anonymous sponsor paid off the balance, said it was from a foundation. What foundation? No name given, likely a private donor. Diane didn't press further, but as she watched over her recovering mother, she looked out the window and whispered, "If that was you, Enzo, thank you." While everyone was busy preparing for Alex's grand birthday party in an exclusive events hall, Enzo quietly attended parenting seminars every weekend. He wore a face mask, a baseball cap, and always sat in the back row. "Fatherhood is not about buying gifts," the speaker said. "It's about showing up. Your presence matters more than your presence." Enzo nodded, a tear forming at the corner of his eye. Meanwhile, Gilo remained busy at school. He was often invited to train with the Quiz B team. Despite the simplicity of their everyday life, Galo never complained. But Diane began to notice the paleness in his face. "Eat a lot, sweetheart," she reminded him nightly. "Yes, Mom. I need to stay strong so I can win next time." But the truth, Gilo often skipped part of his meal, so there would be leftovers for his mom. He studied late into the night, tired, but never wanting to waste her trust. On the day of Alex's birthday, a luxurious event was held at a 5-star hotel. A lead dance floor, 6 cakes, and a celebrity magician entertained the crowd. As Enzo welcomed guests, his phone rang. An unknown number. "Sir, this is the school. J-Lo fainted during class. We took him to the hospital. You're listed as the emergency contact. Ms. Diane is already at another hospital with her mother." It felt like Enzo's world collapsed. He didn't say a word to Katrina. He ran out, got in his car, and drove straight to the hospital. There, he saw J-Lo, lying in bed, pale, with an IV drip in his arm. Enzo's hands trembled as he stepped closer. "Doctor, what happened?" he asked, nearly shouting. "Severe exhaustion, malnourishment, lack of sleep, lack of nutrition. If untreated, it could have led to anemia." Enzo stood silent. It hit him like a slap of truth. This boy, who was always smiling, always eager, always obedient, had been hiding fatigue, sacrifice, and hunger all along. "Why didn't I see this?" he thought. "Why didn't I know sooner?" Diane arrived moments later, breathless from worry. "My baby!" she gasped, seeing Enzo already holding Gilo's hand. She didn't push him away. She didn't scream. She simply sat beside them. J-Lo was still unconscious. "The doctor said he'll recover if cared for properly," she whispered. Silently, Diane held one of Galo's hands. Enzo held the other. For the first time, they sat side by side, not as enemies, but as two parents, both afraid of losing him. As he sat by Galo's bedside, Enzo whispered under his breath, "This won't happen again, son. From now on, I'll be the one watching over you." A few weeks after Galo was hospitalized, a video gained massive attention online. Enzo Ramirez stood at a podium, not in a suit, not in his usual tailored image. He wore a plain polo, no company logos behind him, no brand banners, only a photo of Galo projected on a screen. "Good day," he began. His voice was slightly shaking. "I'm Enzo Ramirez, a father who's been absent from his own son's life for too long." The hall fell silent. The live stream reached over 500,000 viewers in just 5 minutes. "Today I'm not a CEO. I'm not a public figure. I'm just a dad, learning to own up to his failures." He took a deep breath. "I want to publicly declare that the boy in the viral video, the one with dried fish and rice for a birthday meal, the one with a candle stuck in a bowl of rice, that's my son, Angelo Ramirez, my firstborn, and I love him." There was a powerful stillness in the room. Then came a wave of applause and cheers from the audience. "Why is he doing this?" Katrina muttered from the mansion's living room, watching the live broadcast. "Doesn't he know this affects our branding?" Alec added, his brows furrowed. But Enzo didn't care anymore, because for the first time, he chose to be real, not as an image, but as a person. I want to apologize, Enzo continued, not just to Diane and J-Lo, but to every father like me who once chose pride over love. There's still time. It's not too late to return. He paused, then went on. I used to think money was enough, that giving financial support was meeting my responsibility. But I've learned no amount of wealth can replace a hug. No gift can equal a father's time. Backstage, Diane and J-Lo stood quietly. Enzo hadn't asked them to come, but they did, and as they listened to his every word, something long hardened inside began to soften. 1 year later, though Enzo and Diane never rekindled their relationship as a couple, they managed to build a stronger family in J-Lo's eyes. Diane continued teaching, but now with greater ease. Enzo offered her a role as consultant for the Ramirez Group's corporate welfare program, a proposal she herself inspired, ensuring every employee received support, not just in work, but in life. You don't have to say yes out of obligation, Enzo had told her. I'm not saying yes because I owe you, Diane replied. I'm saying yes because it matters. Every year on J-Lo's birthday, there was no need for extravagant parties. A simple gathering, spaghetti, fried chicken, a small cake, was enough. And present at the table were his mom, his dad, a few classmates, neighbors, and teachers. Happy birthday, son, Enzo and Diane would say together. Thank you. This is the best birthday ever, J-Lo would beam. Why? Enzo asked once. Because you're both here the whole day. I don't need surprises or celebrities, just you. As Enzo watched J-Lo laugh with friends, he smiled. Soon, J-Lo ran over and hugged him. Dad, thank you. For what? For not giving up. Enzo gently patted his back. You're the reason I learned not to quit. That night, after the party, while Diane cleaned up the leftover food and Enzo sat on the couch, their eyes met. You know, Diane, I never thought we'd get here, Enzo said. Neither did I. I didn't think I'd let you sit at our table again. They both chuckled softly. But one thing I do know now, Enzo added. What's that? Spaghetti tastes better when you cook it together with your kid. Later that night, as J-Lo slept, Enzo kissed his forehead and whispered, No amount of money can equal a father's hug, but I hope this one's enough for the 7 years I was gone. In his arms slept the child he once forgot, but whom he now chose, with all his heart, to never leave again. Years passed. The boy who once celebrated his birthday with dried fish and rice had become a young man, sharp-minded, composed, and with a heart full of compassion. At 25, J-Lo graduated cum laude with a degree in business administration. He received a full scholarship to pursue his master's degree in Singapore at a prestigious university. What he didn't know was that Enzo had quietly established the scholarship fund behind it. It wasn't named after himself. It was called the Angelo Foundation, named after J-Lo's real name. I don't need credit, Enzo had told Philip. As long as he finishes, that's enough. When J-Lo returned to the US, he applied for a position at his father's company. There was no special treatment. He waited in line like everyone else, submitted a resume, and went through a panel interview, even though the HR department knew exactly who he was. A few days after the interview, he was summoned to an office where Katrina awaited. Congratulations, she said coolly. You've been accepted. But instead of handing over a high-ranking offer, she gave him a paper. Job title, Utility Manager Logistics Support, Branch 7 Queens, New York. J-Lo furrowed his brow. Utility Manager? Yes, Katrina replied, her tone flat. It's a starting point. You know, J-Lo, not everyone gets to start at the top. But isn't there an opening in the management training program at headquarters? Not everyone is meant to begin at the top, she repeated, ending the conversation. You're lucky to even get a chance. Despite the post, Galo accepted it, quietly, without complaints. He didn't ask for connections, he did the work. He lifted boxes, managed inventory, folded staff uniforms. To most, he was just another employee, but to his co-workers, he was a leader. Boss Galo, the staff called him. Even if your position says utility, it feels like you're the real manager here. He's kind, he listens, and he solves problems fast. Another added, he's the only one who helped when my kid needed hospitalization. Meanwhile, Alec, who never finished college, was appointed as president and CEO of the Ramirez Group. At board meetings, he was consistently late, wore sunglasses indoors, and was once caught napping during the finance team's report. Just figure it out, Alec would say. I don't have time for the details. Yet in the media, Alec remained the face of the company. Ramirez Group's young genius, proclaimed a business magazine, but what they didn't know was that every public statement he made was written by Katrina. Just continue the narrative, she told the PR team. Alec is the company's face. One day, Enzo made an unannounced visit to one of the branches. He didn't expect to see J-Lo pushing a delivery cart, polo shirt soaked in sweat, carrying a wrench. What are you doing here? Enzo asked. Working, Dad, J-Lo replied, smiling. This isn't the kind of work you deserve, Enzo murmured as he watched him. In a later board meeting, Alec proposed expanding the company into an untested market. Do we have any data on this strategy's viability? One of the directors asked. Not yet, but I can feel it'll work. It's a gut thing. Silence followed. Most couldn't believe what they'd heard. Before anyone could interject, Katrina spoke up. Let's trust Alec's vision. He has the instincts of a true leader. No one argued, but outside the boardroom, senior staff began to whisper. Since when did business depend on intuition alone? Back at Galo's branch, morale was rising. Incident reports dropped. Positive customer feedback surged. Even in a low-ranking position, Galo had earned everyone's respect, not because of his last name, but because of his character. One night, while Enzo and Philip discussed company matters in the office, Philip brought something up. Sir, several department heads are requesting to work with Galo. Really? Enzo asked, surprised. Yes, sir. No complaints. His rank may be low, but respect for him is high. Enzo went silent. He closed his eyes, and once again, the image returned. A boy blowing out a candle on top of rice. In the months that followed, the contrast between Alec and J-Lo became more apparent within the company. Alec arrived at meetings late, delegated critical decisions to assistants, and left early for tennis practice or influencer shoots. Yet in every company newsletter, his name was always on the headline. J-Lo, on the other hand, was in the field, checking broken inventory, assisting janitors when equipment failed, helping elderly customers fill out forms. He never asked for attention, but employees noticed. He doesn't act like a boss, one cleaner said. He acts like a teammate. Eventually, word reached Enzo. During a private lunch meeting with the board, one of the directors leaned forward. Sir, with all due respect, we know who your real successor is. Enzo looked at him, surprised. You don't mean Alec? The director smiled faintly. A leader can be taught, but character is earned. That same week, Enzo invited J-Lo to his home, not the mansion, but a quiet property he'd recently purchased in Vermont. Just the two of them. They sat by the porch. The wind carried the scent of pine and wet earth. It was peaceful. Son, Enzo began, there's something I want to ask you. J-Lo turned to him. If I offered you a higher position in the company, would you take it? J-Lo thought carefully before answering. Only if the people I'll work with believe I earned it, Not because of my last name. Enzo nodded. I respect that. There was a pause. Then Galo asked, Dad, can I ask you something too? Of course. Why didn't you give me your name before? Enzo's eyes dropped. I didn't think I deserved to give it to you. Not back then. I was ashamed. Galo nodded. I used to wish I had it, when I saw how other kids carried their dads' names with pride. And now? Enzo asked quietly. Now I'm okay with the one Mom gave me. It's not about the name on the ID. It's about the one I live up to. Enzo's eyes welled. Would it be okay, he asked, voice shaking, if I still offered it to you, not to claim you, but to honor you? Galo looked at him. Yes, Dad. I'd be proud to carry it now. That weekend, they visited the courthouse and filed the papers. Galo's name was officially changed to Angelo D. Ramirez. The D stood for Diane. It's her I owe my life to, Galo said during the filing, so her name stays. Months later, when Enzo announced his early retirement, the board expected Alec to take the seat, but Enzo surprised them all. I'm appointing a new acting CEO, he announced. He won't carry the most awards or the most headlines, but he has the one thing I never had at his age, humility. He motioned toward the entrance. Galo entered in a plain grey suit. The room erupted in applause. Meet your new acting CEO, Angelo D. Ramirez. Alec didn't speak. Katrina sat frozen. In that moment, the truth had arrived. Not in scandal, not in conflict, but in silence and merit. Later, Enzo approached Galo in his new office. He smiled. Do you remember your 7th birthday? Galo laughed softly. Rice, dried fish, candle in a bowl. That's still the most honest celebration I've ever seen. It was enough, Galo replied, because Mom was there. And now, Enzo added, I'll be here too. Galo stood and hugged his father. From the balcony, they looked out over the city. The company towers loomed tall, but in Enzo's heart, nothing was taller than the man his son had become. Not because of what he built, but because of what he never abandoned. A year after Angelo D. Ramirez was appointed acting CEO, the Ramirez Group saw a significant transformation, not just in revenue, but in culture. Employees who had once worked in silence now spoke with pride. Departments that rarely coordinated now collaborated seamlessly. There were no more layers of hierarchy that divided the top from the base, because the man at the top had once been at the bottom. One Friday afternoon, Galo walked through the company cafeteria. Not one person stood or saluted, not because they didn't respect him, but because he never asked them to. Instead, he joined a team of janitors at their table, laughed at their jokes, and even shared part of his sandwich. In another corner, a new intern stared in awe. That's our CEO, she whispered. Yup, one of the older staff replied, the only boss who actually reads your suggestion box. At home, Diane had finally moved into a better neighborhood, not too grand, but peaceful. She had her own small tutorial center, funded by her own savings. She never asked Galo for help. He offered once, but she declined. Keep that for your family someday, she told him. I already have what I need. One evening, as she watered the small plants on her porch, Enzo arrived with groceries. He still visited regularly, not because he was obligated, but because he wanted to. I got your favorite apples, he said, raising a paper bag. Diane chuckled. Still trying to win me over? Always, he grinned. They sat together in silence for a few minutes. The sky was orange, the air calm. We really grew up, didn't we? Diane said suddenly. Some of us slower than others, Enzo replied. She smiled. You're not the man you used to be, Enzo. I hope that's a good thing. It is. Inside, Galo prepared dinner. When he joined them on the porch, he placed plates on a fold-out table. just 3 chairs, one for each of them. "Let's eat," he said. As they began to eat, J-Lo looked at both his parents. "Mom, Dad," they turned to him. "I want to thank you for loving me in your own ways, for raising me not with riches, but with reason, for showing me that what matters most is not the weight of your name, but the strength of your character." Neither Diane nor Enzo responded immediately. Instead, they each reached out and held one of his hands. That night, no candles were needed, no birthday, no awards, no public speeches, just a family, repaired by time, healed by truth, and held together by the very thing money could never buy: presence. The end. Hey there, it's me again, Mr. Hope, your friend and favorite narrator. I hope you enjoyed this awesome tale. If you did, drop me a comment below. I love you all. Bye.